In the small, picturesque town of Ravenswood, where every stone and street held a secret, there was an old antique shop known as Eleanor's Curiosities. The shop was a labyrinth of forgotten relics, each with a story waiting to be told. The most intriguing and feared among these items was a necklace that had come to be known as the Necklace of Sorrows. Eleanora, the shop's elderly owner, had long since stopped selling the necklace, but its tale was well known among the locals. According to legend, the necklace had been crafted in the late 1800s by a master jeweler named Edward Harrow. He had fashioned it from silver and inlaid it with deep red garnets, said to be the tears of a heartbroken spirit. It was a beautiful piece, captivating and alluring, but it was also cursed. The curse began with the tragic love story of Edward Harrow and his beloved Clara. Clara had fallen ill and, despite Edward's desperate attempts to save her, she died in his arms. In his grief, Edward poured his sorrow into creating the necklace, vowing that anyone who wore it would feel the depth of his pain. It was said that the necklace would bring misfortune, heartbreak, and ultimately death to its wearer. The legend was largely forgotten until one fateful evening when a young woman named Sophie stumbled upon Eleanor's Curiosities. Sophie was new to Ravenswood, having recently moved to escape a troubled past. Drawn by the allure of the antique shop, she entered, her eyes immediately captured by the glimmer of the necklace. "Ah, the Necklace of Sorrows," Eleanora said, her voice tinged with caution as she saw Sophie's interest. "It is not for sale, my dear. It is a piece best left untouched." Sophie, intrigued by the warning, pressed Eleanora for the story. Despite her reservations, Eleanora recounted the tale of Edward and Clara and the curse that followed. Sophie, though apprehensive, was strangely drawn to the necklace. She felt a connection to it, a pull she couldn't explain. Over the next few days, Sophie couldn't get the necklace out of her mind. Its beauty and the tragic story behind it captivated her. She returned to the shop repeatedly, pleading with Eleanora to let her have it. Reluctantly, sensing Sophie's determination, Eleanora finally agreed, but not without a stern warning. "Beware, Sophie. The curse is real. Once you put it on, your fate is sealed." Ignoring the warning, Sophie took the necklace home and, with trembling hands, clasped it around her neck. The garnets sparkled in the dim light of her apartment, and for a moment, she felt a rush of exhilaration. But that night, the dreams began. In her dreams, Sophie found herself in a vast, desolate landscape. The sky was a sickly yellow, and the ground was cracked and barren. She saw Edward Harrow, his eyes hollow with grief, wandering the wasteland, calling out for Clara. The pain in his voice was palpable, a sorrow so deep it seemed to seep into Sophie's very soul. The dreams continued every night, growing more intense and horrifying. Sophie's waking hours were filled with an overwhelming sense of dread. Misfortune followed her wherever she went. She lost her job, her friends grew distant, and she felt an oppressive weight bearing down on her, as if Edward's grief was consuming her. Desperate to escape the curse, Sophie returned to Eleanor's Curiosities, only to find the shop closed and boarded up. Eleanora had vanished without a trace. In her despair, Sophie began to research the necklace, hoping to find a way to break the curse. Her search led her to the old, abandoned workshop of Edward Harrow, now a crumbling ruin on the outskirts of town. As she explored the decaying building, she found a dusty journal, Edward's final testament. In it, he described a ritual that could lift the curse, but at a terrible cost. To free oneself from the necklace, he wrote, one must willingly offer their deepest sorrow to the spirits that bind it. Only then will the curse be lifted. Sophie, now on the brink of madness, decided to perform the ritual. She gathered the necessary items, candles, salt, and a silver dagger, and returned to her apartment. As she followed the instructions, she felt the weight of Edward's sorrow pressing down on her, threatening to crush her spirit. With the circle drawn and the candles lit, Sophie held the dagger over her heart, ready to offer her deepest sorrow. But as she prepared to make the sacrifice, the necklace tightened around her neck, choking her. Edward's ghostly figure appeared before her, his eyes filled with sorrow and rage. "You cannot escape my pain," he whispered. "It is eternal." In a final, desperate act, Sophie plunged the dagger into the necklace, shattering the garnets. A deafening wail filled the room as the spirits trapped within were released. The necklace fell to the floor, broken and powerless. Sophie collapsed, gasping for breath, the oppressive weight lifting from her chest. The curse was broken, but at a terrible cost. She was left with deep, emotional scars, haunted by the memories of Edward's sorrow and the torment she had endured. The next day, Sophie left Ravenswood, leaving the shattered necklace behind. Eleanor's curiosities remained closed, and the tale of the necklace of sorrows faded once more into the shadows, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to uncover its tragic history. For in the town of Ravenswood, where every stone and street held a secret, the curse of the necklace of sorrows would always linger, a reminder of the enduring power of grief and the dark allure of cursed jewelry.